I'm running away from my pro-Trump, Christ-stained family to be with the women I love. When I look back on the past year and a half of my life, I don't know whether to cry or scream since all the changes were so heavy and life-changing. All in all, I don't regret anything I did, and I've never been happier. I'm a 19-year-old girl, and I grew up in an extremely small religious town in the Deep South. I was homeschooled, and I've lived a very sheltered life. Everyone always asks me why I'm so quiet, but I've just always been shy, and I like to keep to myself, and I've only become more introverted as I've grown up. My family and my entire community are very pro-Trump. It's normal in my town to be hyper-religious and hateful toward other groups of people. I haven't known anything except this dingy little town, but that type of hate has never felt right in my heart. When I was about 14, I realized that I was different. All the other girls in town were lusting over boys, but they did nothing for me. I cried so hard the day I realized I liked girls. I was scared of going to hell, and I knew this would only make me more of an outsider than I already was. I kept my identity a secret. I thought I would never be able to live out my dreams of falling in love with a beautiful girl. My mom had been telling me since I was a little girl that it was my godly duty to find a good husband and give him healthy children. But God works in mysterious ways, and I could have never expected him to send me an angel of my own soon enough. It was a Sunday in spring when we met. My allergies were acting up. I kept sneezing during the sermon, so my mom told me to stand outside until church was over. I walked to the back of the big white church, and when I turned the corner, I saw a girl I had never seen before. She was beautiful. She had freckles and thick dark hair, and when she turned to face me, I saw a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. It felt like someone lit a candle inside me, and I walked over to her as I felt heat grow in my chest. She gave me a big smile, revealing that she was missing one of her front teeth. But she didn't need it, and I could have dove into her big brown eyes like they were pools of chocolate syrup. She introduced herself as Bobby. She said her family had just moved to town, and she hated it so far. I could tell she talked a lot as soon as the conversation started. She went on, but I could have listened to her all day. She talked about how she had gotten kicked out of her old high school and her parents had moved to a more religious area, hoping that it would improve her behavior. She offered me her cigarette as she spoke, and I took it to seem cool. She stopped talking when we saw me struggling to inhale the smoke, and she let out this cheery little giggle. That's when she told me to hit her cigarette again, but this time take a big deep breath when she put her hand on me. She put a hand flat on my heart and looked into my eyes as she told me to inhale. That time I successfully hit the forgetter, and when I exhaled the smoke I realized that this mysterious girl standing in front of me was my very first crush. She gave me this mischievous little smile as I passed her cigarette back to her, and she resumed talking. As I said, I'm on the quiet side, so just standing there with another person who made me feel comfortable and filled the silence so naturally felt calming to me. When we said goodbye behind the church that day, we made plans to meet up and hang out soon after. From the spring into the summer, we got to know each other better and better. Bobby was everything I wasn't. She was a loud, unapologetic, rule breaker, and halfway into the summer, I realized I was falling in love with her. By the time summer came, we were inseparable. We would spend our days sitting side by side dipping our feet into warm creeks, and at night we would lay a big blanket out in some secluded field, and stargs until we fell asleep in each other's arms. Some summer nights, Bobby would steal fireworks, and we would sneak out in the middle of the night to set them off together. One night, Bobby stole a massive firework and we set it off without realizing just how huge it was. The explosion lit the sky up and triggered some car alarms. We ran away from the scene laughing and holding hands. We ran into one of our neighbors' barns, shushing each other and giggling as we listened to the chaos we created. Our hushed laughter died down, and we stared at each other in that dark barn, a tiny sliver of moonlight peeking in from the ajar door. The soft blue light caught her deep brown eyes, and I held her face in my hand and told her I loved her. She just stepped forward and took me in her arms. The next thing I knew, she was pushing her fingers into my hair and kissing me deeply. We sunk to the floor together, kissing passionately and telling each other how much we loved each other. We stayed in that barn for hours, talking about our feelings for each other and holding each other. We knew our families would never accept us, so we agreed to keep our relationship a secret, for now. I was 19, and Bobby was 18, we were legal adults but neither of us had any skills or money of our own. We made a plan together that night in the barn. We were going to run away together. We didn't want to keep our love a secret forever, and we both knew the only thing we cared about in this crappy little town was each other. We decided we would start saving money in secret, and in a couple of months we would leave and never look back. We were fools, but I'd say we tried our very best even if we didn't know how hard it would turn out to be. I'm running away from my pro-Trump, Christ-stained family to be with the women I love. Over the next couple of months, Bobby and I's connection continued to grow, as did our shared savings. Both of our parents were controlling and abusive. They were all blinded by the religion and we never had a good relationship with them to begin with. I am the youngest out of 6 siblings, and my parents always treated me like the family's stupid little servant. The only books I was allowed to read were my homeschool textbooks and the Bible. Before Bobby came into my life, my world was hollow, but she had shown me how unpredictable and enjoyable life could really be. I started making money by doing seamstress work for some ladies in my church, Since I did all my business at church, it was easy to hide my earnings from my parents. They couldn't know I was making money for myself. I knew they would take it and punish me for acting gluttonous. Meanwhile, Bobby was allowed to get a job as a cashier at our town's one gas station. Her parents thought she was showing a lot of responsibility and maturity. Little did they know we were saving money together in order to skip town together. We bought a waterproof lockbox, and we hid all our cash in a secure spot in the woods. We knew it was unsafe, but we were trying to prepare for the scenario where our parents found out about our relationship. Both of our parents were homophobic, and Bobby had actually been kicked out of her old Christian school because she has been caught kissing girls in the bathroom. Meanwhile, my parents were constantly talking about how the country was screwed because of the LGBT and how they were all perverts and groomers. I heard my parents use homophobic slurs on a regular basis. We both knew they would never accept us. Even worse, if we ever came out, we might be sent to conversion camp just like some other kids in my town. That's why we had no choice but to live together in secret if we ever wanted to live openly as who we really were. A couple of months into us working and saving, we had saved almost $5,000, and we were almost ready to leave. We started planning our escape, and every day we felt more excited to start our new life together. Everything was going smoothly until we messed up one night. We had a sunset picnic near my house. We thought we had chosen a secluded enough spot, but I guess not. We had fallen asleep holding each other, and my shirt was off, and so were Bobby's pants. We had been having these picnics all summer, but this time we just hadn't chosen a hidden enough spot. We woke up to flashlights in our faces, and as I opened my eyes, my parents' shocked, angry faces came into view. My father literally grabbed me by my hair and pulled me across the field, all the way home. It was excruciating, and my scalp was bleeding afterward. I only ever been given a simple flip phone, but my parents scolded me for being a dirty DK sinner and took away my phone. It was a very difficult night, and I cried over the pain that my parent had inflicted on us. I could get the image of half-nude Bobby, crying and reaching out for me as my dad pulled me away. When my parents took my phone, I was frustrated, but I thought, whatever. Me and Bobby had been smarter than them, and ever since we started dating we had been planning for a day like this. We had agreed that if our parents ever separated us, we would meet in 24 hours at the spot where we buried our money scratch. Sure enough, the next day, I snuck out of my house and waited for her in the dark woods, standing on the pile of dirt that hid our money stash. My stomach did flips as I stood there alone, shaking with anxiety as I waited to see if Bobby would show. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest when I heard twigs snap and turned my head to see my beautiful girlfriend standing there in front of me. The moonlight was lighting up her eyes in the same stunning way it had on the first night. We kissed in the barn. We embraced and nearly made love right there in the middle of the forest. We stood and spoke about what to do. We decided we had had enough, and even though we had planned to save more money, we agreed to say screw it and leave that night. Like I said, we had planned for this, so we were 3 steps ahead of our parents. We had packed burner phones and an emergency go bag with some extra clothes and essentials with our money stash, so even though we had to give up all the valuables we left back in our room, we made the sacrifice for each other. We used our burners to call a taxi. Our plan had always been to move to the big city a few hours away from our town. We had to take multiple taxis right then in the middle of the night, but by the next morning we were in the city. We got a hotel room for 3 nights, and immediately started searching for a place to live. It took about a month, but we ended up renting an affordable room in an older woman's house, and it didn't take long before we were settled in. Our landlady was a sweet woman who really sympathized with us. She helped us replace all of our legal documents since we were literal runaways, and a couple weeks later, Bobby and I both had part-time jobs in our new city. My life is completely different now. I work as a decorator in a bakery and I adore my job even though it pays pennies. Bobby works at another gas station, but we come home to each other every night, and we even adopted a little cat and named him Matthew, after the church where we met. Being able to sleep in Bobby's arms every night, wear makeup, and own a smartphone are all brand new experiences to me, and my new world feels so open and bright. I never knew how colorful and fulfilling this life could be, and my new freedom makes every day feel like a blessing. When I look at Bobby, I see my savior, my angel. I feel like she saved me from the empty life I was living in my old town, and I can't say I don't believe in God. Because when I look in her eyes, I know she was sent to me straight from heaven.